Good morning and welcome back to the Teacher's Wake Up Call. I know I didn't post a lot of content last week, but when I say I was busy, I was busy. I had a special project on Monday and Tuesday, so I was not at school, and that meant that I was in transit. I have forgotten how bad traffic can be. I have forgotten that it used to take me easily 45 minutes to an hour to get to work if I left at the regular time. But I used to be that person, and I would leave at 3 hours before the school start time. My caller is doing something really wacky today. I don't know what's going on, but it's never that open. It's never that open, never that popping. And then on the 30th, I had another event. I had to drive to Gatineau, like the Ottawa region, and then come back. Basically, I had a busy week, and next week's not going to be better. Next week, I am off to Banff. So I have a week, not even a full week. I have 4 days of normalcy this week. We have another professional day on Friday. Next week I'm in for only 2 days. It's going to be hectic. So I have to maximize my time here. I have to make sure my students are ready to work independently. They have to be able to work without, I don't want to say without guidance, but I'm probably going to ask them to check in with me through Google Classroom, maybe once in those 4 days that I'm going to be gone, because they need it. Will they actually do it? That's another story. Maybe my grade 10s. I have faith in my grade 10s, but the grade 11s. I'm trying a little experiment. I posted a question on Google Classroom because they say that they don't check Google Classroom and whatnot. And I tell them next year when you get to CEGEP, when you get to college, teachers are going to be posting up stuff on their platforms, and you cannot use the excuse oh, I didn't read it. You won't be able to. You won't be able to because it'll be your duty to check. So I want to see. So I'm going to do this little experiment and find out if it's going to work. Which brings me to today's question. Is teaching today harder than it was 25, 26 years ago? So, is teaching harder than it used to be? Okay, so let's travel back in time to 1998. 1998 when I started. I started in December 1998. So I'm coming up to my 27th anniversary, okay? I started in December of 1998, and I was given a group of grade 8 English as a second language. And I was told that I was the third, fourth sub that came in to work with them. Their fourth. I think the first teacher had to go on leave. The second teacher couldn't do it long term because she was pregnant and was also going on leave. The third teacher did it as a stopgap measure until the principal found someone, because he ended up being overloaded on his schedule, so he wasn't allowed to keep teaching that. So then I ended up being hired. I was teacher number 4. And it was the hardest group. I ended up really enjoying it at the end, but I swear, from December to April, it was a lot of work. They were demanding, they were rowdy, they were chaotic, they were rude, they were disrespectful. But then I think that when they realized that I stuck around until June, they were shocked. They even told me to my face, "We didn't think you would survive. We thought you were going to leave." And this was in 1998. And then I spent, from 98 to 2001, I was a French second language. I was a French teacher, but I was in three different schools. 3 different schools? No, 2 different schools. I was in 2 different schools. So I want to say 98, but I think it was 99. It was 99 to 2001. And I never had the easiest groups. They were either students who were failing, who had failed, but were put into catch-up groups. I usually had the most overloaded classes. Like, I remember one of my classes was close to like 34. And you have to understand, I know some classes, like the teachers in Alberta right now, they're dealing with a reality where they have 40, sometimes 40 plus students. They're teaching, they're not even teaching in a classroom. They're teaching in like a glorified broom closet. So, okay, but when you start your career and you're told that the worst case scenario in a classroom will be like 2 or 3 problem students, and max out at maybe 28, 30 students. When you have 34, 36 students, it's a bit of a shock to the system. And I didn't know how to navigate the union side of things. So I didn't know what were my rights and what was permitted, what wasn't permitted. So it was definitely an interesting experience. There's a reason why I'm no longer in the French system, okay? Many reasons. I think 2 or 3 main ones. But then fast forward to 2001, and I started in a school that no longer exists but has become another school, so they merged with another school. And I had problem students, and this was in 2001. My kids, like, I think 2/3 of my class were coded. Sweethearts, lovely kids. But I had that one kid who, it never happened on my watch. It happened with a sub, who threw a chair out the window. He was very needy, very needy. I don't know what has become of him. Unlike a lot of the other students in that class, I pretty much know more or less where they are right now. They were very needy. And then I had a grade 10 class, very apathetic, very indifferent. They didn't care if they failed. And then my grade 11 class, when I said, you can't graduate, you can't get your high school leaving diploma if you don't pass French. They would answer, that's okay, I'll do it in adult ed. So my secret weapon that I had developed in the French system didn't even work. In the French system, if you tell them, if you fail this, you won't graduate, they would lose their minds. They would panic. Saying that triggered panic mode for them. Yeah, I know, I was triggering their anxieties, but that was the motivation for them, being able to get their high school leaving diploma. In the English system, at least at the school where I was at the time, that was not their motivation, because they knew they had other means of success, which is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? And I remember that grade 11 class, oh my God, that grade 11 class, rowdy, once again, sweethearts. They would always make me laugh. But would they ever shut up? Would they ever not do a play-by-play of what was going on in class, right? And I had one kid who was very rude to me in front of all the other students, and I lost it. I started bawling my eyes out, not because he was, but it was, I just got overcome with emotion. And thankfully, all the other students like backed me up and came to my defense. It's like, no, 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 no. He was wrong for doing that. So at least I felt, you know. So my students came with a lot of baggage. They came with a lot of baggage. They had a lot of issues, a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, whether they were personal challenges, social challenges, mental health issues, learning difficulties, everything. They had it all. And even in the French system, where at the time, special needs were not seen the same way. Like they had closed groups. So they had closed groups, meaning that if you were heavily coded, if you were truly a special needs and you had been assessed, and they would put you in a group called cheminement particulier, particular path, okay? And basically it would be a very small group, not even more than like 20 students. That was at the most. And if you weren't coded, if you hadn't been assessed, if you weren't deemed special need, all in the regular class. So I ended up with kids who I think were special needs, but obviously didn't qualify according to the standards at the time. Now things have changed. Okay, things have changed, and integration of students with special needs into a regular class is commonplace. You can have an enriched class, all right, an enriched class, and have kids with special needs, but then all kids have special needs. Unpopular opinion, all students have special needs. Some of them are aware of them, and some of them aren't. So, was it easier to teach before? Now, I'm taking it from my perspective, okay? No, it wasn't easier. No, it wasn't. And you can fight me on this, okay? I think, at least in my case, I did not have the knowledge, the tools, the experience needed to navigate a classroom, to deal with a classroom, to structure, manage a classroom. Therefore, it was much more difficult. Even when I did my field work, even when I did my stages, my field work before I graduated, I ended up with very difficult classes who were not like, they were not evil classes, but they weren't easy classes either. So I think maybe 50, 60 years ago, it would have been easier because the way you managed classes and the way you dealt with classes is that the teacher was the rule of law. If you disrespected the teacher, you were out. There was a lot more room to maneuver in that respect. But 60 years ago, even 50 years ago, if you weren't cut for school, if you weren't meant to be at school, there were other means to live a personal success. You would go to trade school, you would go to vocational school, or you would apprentice, like some people would find a job in apprentice. So the reality, the social reality was very different, and it made teaching easier because we have this vision, you know, of students sitting in rows or in groups, and now that we have, you know, And if you think that special needs kids didn't exist back then, they did. They did. But what would happen is that they would be weeded out. It's sad, but that's how it was. A kid would fail, oh well, he would do grade 8 or grade 6 or grade 3 again. And that was the reality. That was the reality. And if after the second try he still didn't succeed or she didn't still succeed, then talk would be had with the parents, and often they would be sent to a different school because maybe the environment. And now that dynamic, that reality, those circumstances don't exist anymore. We know that the integration of students is much better than the exclusion, and creating separate classes just with students with special needs is not the same anymore. I think also socially we become more aware of our, I don't want to say our particularities, but what makes every learner unique. And we know that in order to ensure success, we need to be aware of those different aspects, those different quirks, particularities. And even as adults, we know, for instance, well, I can't focus when there's music around me. Or, oh, I need to have some music in the background. It allows me to focus a bit more. Or other adults say, like, I have to be moving around. Like, even the adults realize now that if they want to succeed, they have to have certain criteria met. And now we apply them to kids as well, because we know that it works. Does that make my job more difficult? No. Because as long as I can accommodate, I can accommodate that, it makes it manageable. And I think also when we are aware and we are empathetic and when we are collaborative, when we are understanding, when we want to create the best environment in the classroom, I think the students realize that, they understand that, and they want to collaborate, and they want to make sure that we respect that context. You understand what I mean? And I don't think we had that in the past. I don't think we had that in the past. It was, this doesn't work, you leave, bye. And then you would have people who would fall through the cracks. And I wonder how many of those people that slipped through the cracks back then, I would say up until like the mid to late 90s, all right? I wonder how they are doing now, you know? What I mean by doing, how they're doing, I'm not just talking school-wise and then they go to university and that sort of thing. With themselves. Because now I think because we've become more aware of what makes us tick, we become better learners in the long run, collectively. So I don't think it was easier before. I think teaching is easier now, as long as we understand that mindset. As long as we understand that we have different learners, we have different realities, and we need to make all of those realities work. I didn't have that understanding when I started my career. I didn't have that experience. I didn't have that knowledge. So 27 years ago, was it easier? Nope. Nope, it wasn't easier. Have the students changed? Maybe, but not that much. Not that much. Maybe in 10 years, but I don't see, at least in the students that I have, all right, and I had, I don't see that much of a difference. It's a bit longer for a Monday morning, but it's Monday. Have yourselves an awesome day.